All right. So, this is episode 2 of a single shot where we delve deeply into the visuals of the web series I did called Dream of Me. Bear with me. I'm still getting used to all this, how to set this up. I've got this sweet blanket background. Just trying to cut down on some of the noise and try to control the light a little bit better. And to keep you guys from finding out where I live, I don't need any, Secret Service people busting in the middle of my stream like all you guys. You love to do it. I know you do. All right. So first things we're going to address is I have a question from a username ZMasses. Two posts from ZMasses on the last episode of the stream on the first shot. ZMasses says, "All hail the mighty circle." ZMasses, you're right. You're right there with me. You get it. I think you get it. The circle is pretty much where it all began. The wheel, all that stuff, all those inventions came from the circle. And if there's anything that I like to point to as humanity being relatively stupid, is that there's a giant circle in the sky. Everything in the sky is circles, and it took us, I don't know how long, to finally invent the wheel. Pretty stupid, if you ask me. We're a dumb species, and we've always been a dumb species, and we'll always be a dumb species. Other thing, he says, question: why do wide shots bore you? I may have misspoke. Wide shots do not bore me. Medium shots bore me. I don't know if I might have misspoke on the last stream. I don't know. But ZMasses, to answer your question, wide shots do not bore me. Wide shots and close-ups make me excited. Medium shots tend to be informational and relatively boring. I think, as I was going into in the last stream, there's only two types of paintings. There are portraits and there are landscapes. Now, portraits can be full body, but for me, it tends to be the acting. The story is told in the eyes, which you're going to want to get close. That's assuming the subject that is telling the story is a humanoid, or something with eyeballs. That's where most of the story is told, which are two circles. All hail the mighty circles. The wide shot gives you a sense of place and a sense of scope, and shows the world in which the character or the subject inhabits. Medium shots tend to be things that are kind of there to change it, just there to change it up. You know what I mean? Medium shots are just kind of, and when I'm talking about medium shots, I'm generally talking about one of the worst directors in the world is Judd Apatow. He's absolutely horrendous. You can't even call what he does directing. All he does is shoot two people improvising, and then he has an editor build it. In fact, I would go so far as, I know I'm probably going to lose some people here, but what's his name? Tree of Life. Who's the pretentious jerk that did Tree of Life? What's his name? I'm going to look it up right now because I can't remember. Tree of Life. What's the director's name? I know the cinematographer is Emmanuel Lubezki. Tree of Life. Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick is a garbage director. He's what Werner Herzog would call a garbage collector. He just goes out and shoots and shoots and shoots. Anybody can do that. Anybody can hire Emmanuel Lubezki if they have the money and resources, shut down a section of Texas, film for months on end if they have all the resources and if they've convinced a bunch of people that they're a genius, and then stitch together a bunch of great footage from Emmanuel Lubezki's shots, and then sit in an editing room with an editor and just go through it and find the best bits, string it together, have Philip Glass or whomever come in and do the score, and then you're not a director. Terrence Malick sucks. He's the most overrated windbag that's ever gotten behind a camera. He sucks. And I look forward to his stupid new movie, whatever it is, Sing Sing. Anyway, I hate that. I hate that guy's work. I think it's terrible. I think he's fooled a bunch of pretentious art students into thinking that he's creative, but he is not. The king of filmmaking was Hitchcock. Hitchcock nailed it on every single level. He edited before he even went out and shot. Kubrick also was a master, and those are people who really planned things ahead of time. They really knew what they were going for, and they didn't. Hitchcock didn't really change once he went out to start to shoot. Kubrick would sometimes roll with the punches and kind of do things. You know, there's a lot of footage of him constantly changing the scripts on the day. He would constantly be changing dialogue and stuff like that. But the story, once he had the story nailed down, he had the story nailed down. Terrence Malick doesn't even have a story. He just is like, oh, I'm going for a feeling. Yeah, okay. Well, I can watch a 30-second commercial and get a feeling from it and get a story out of it, you know. Commercial directors are sometimes better than these windbags that are behind the cameras killing filmmaking because they would rather be perceived as like some all-important individual when they are not. They're just filmmakers. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. Lawyers less so impressive. Anyway, that's enough complaining. But wide shots don't bore me, the masses. I have to say your name like I am a German. The masses. Wide shots do not bore me. It's medium shots because they tend to be transitional. You're waiting for the close-up. You start with you see the wides, and you're waiting for like the nice large scope. You know, nobody likes the medium shots. And like, what do you remember from Lord of the Rings? The close-ups and the wide shots, or the medium shots? Generally, you think of the big sprawling Middle-earth landscapes and tight shots when people are getting each other's faces, or, you know, reaching for the ring and getting all intense and their eyes get wide. So I hope that answers that question. And I went on a little bit of a tangent and railed against people in the industry, but there is no industry anymore because it's dying. All right. Enough doom and gloom. Now let's, the chat is open. I can't see if people are watching or not, but feel free to chat. Leave any questions you have that I didn't address in the stream. Leave those in the comments below. I will try to answer them next time if I see them. Usually I check right before I do the stream. So thanks to those who have watched. All right, let's change up the look here. Okay, this was the shot from last time. And just to recap, it's a big sprawling wide landscape. We have light on the left to draw our eye. The darkness is on the right. This little number was here hiding the whole time. Again, spoilers. This whole thing is spoilers. Go watch the series if you haven't watched it yet. You'll probably enjoy it. All right, so let's go to the next shot. All right, hold on a second. Okay, here we go. All right, now I might have to go through this because my computer's running a lot of things right now. Now, this next shot here, we cut right to some feet running against red. I mentioned why red last time. But here we are. I'm going to have to... one of the things I want to point out is that if you were to take a still image from a shot, an angle, whatever it is, if you were to take a still image where you can clearly see Sorry, my computer is going berserk right now. I don't know. Okay, that's not where I wanted to be. All right. Hold on a second. This thing is acting really screwy. All right. Hopefully that's better. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully I'll get a new computer soon, or, you know, get a new setup, figure some things out so that this stuff is not nearly as, you know, jury-rigged as it is. All right, now let me find a still frame from this shot here. So what we've gone from is an extreme wide shot of the planet, of virtually no point of reference. All we really gather from that first shot, let me find a good still frame to get in on here. All we've gathered from that first shot is that we're somewhere in space. It was a shot of space. So it primes our brain for, hopefully, science fiction, something otherworldly. Originally, that first shot was not the first shot. This was the first shot in my original draft. Now, you'll see here, there's a flashlight on the ground that's moving across. Now, all right, here we go. Let me see, try and find something that's joys of shooting in low light. All right. So, once again, that's good. We'll stop it there. All right. So, once again, we have let me set that up. All right. Once again, we have two squares side by side. This side is dark. My computer is running very, very slowly today, which is, you know, going to make for an interesting stream. And this part is light. Now, again, we have a similar, at least on this still frame, we have a relatively similar composition where the light is not far off from where the star was about here. If we were to lay this shot over the first shot, the focal point was here. And now the focal point, like I said before, your eye tends to go to the brightest part first. So your eye was over here, going between the text that was at the center and the bright spot here. And now we have a bright spot here. And the information that I'm conveying is that there's a guy running. Those are two legs. So the main thing that you're getting out of this visually is that there's somebody running, there's snow on the ground, they have a flashlight, or there's some sort of light that they're carrying. So there you go, back to that shot. And then we go back to this. You'll see that the light side is on the left, dark side is on the right. Not to sound too Star Warsy. The light and the dark. By the way, I am not excited about the new Star Wars. I think it's just going to be a Empire Strikes Back clone. And then I'm out. That's it for me on Star Wars, guys. I'm done with Star Wars. I'm trying to make my own now. All right, so one of the things I wanted to talk about is this particular shot, not too exciting. It goes on for a long time. I wish it was lit better. It wasn't. I didn't have lights. I had to wait for what's called a low ceiling outside. I had to wait for like a cloud coverage that was really, really low to the ground in the town where I was living, so that the light from the street lamps would bounce off the clouds and illuminate the area, which it did for the most part. It did do a decent job. The other thing I wanted to say is that the camera that I'm using, the D7000, I got it particularly because it's good in low light. That was why I originally bought it. So I knew, like, if I went out, people would be able to. I would be able to boost some of the stuff later in After Effects. Again, working with whatever equipment I had. Now, I know said I wasn't going to address sound too much in these streams, but this particular shot is all about the sound. For those of you who have watched the series, which I assume is all of you, why would you be watching this if you haven't watched the series? There is a hint to the fact that we're not on Earth, or if we are, there's something that's not right. When you listen to the sound effects, I layered the sound of footsteps in snow over the sounds of boots on metal. So if you go back and listen, there's a section at which, in this shot, Albus Corona, who's our character here, right here in this section, it starts to get very dark, but you still hear the sound effects of the feet hitting the ground, and it goes from snow when he leaves the snow, and then it becomes metal, and you hear metal sounds, but you see concrete. So your brain is getting two pieces of information that kind of conflict. The visual piece of information and the auditory piece of information are not matching up for a few seconds. So that's the first sign that something's wrong. The other thing I did was the music at this point starts very low. The levels are very low. Why does it keep doing that? All right. All right. This thing is acting very strange. My stylus is acting weird. Stylus, not stylist. Anyways. So your brain is seeing, so your eyeballs are seeing concrete, but your ears are hearing metal. So that has to do with letting people know that something's off, something's not quite right. Now the music, as I was saying, comes in, starts very low, and then it starts to ramp up during this shot. By the way, we'll be doing 2 shots today. So the music starts low and it starts ramping up to a point where I max it out. So essentially what you're hearing is the movie starts the quietest it will be, and then it ramps up to the loudest it will be when you see the title. So by the time you see the title, because I don't have control over people's sound, like in a theater, you can control the audio. Nobody can get up. Nobody can reach for the remote and change the audio. They just accept the decibel levels where they are when they sit in a movie theater. So essentially what I was trying to do is I was trying to allow the viewer to adjust their audio levels to where they'd like them to be based on the opening, by ramping it all the way up so that you get an idea of the full scope of the sound and the I guess amplitude of the entire piece in the beginning. So then if it's too loud for you, people are going to turn it down a little bit, whether they're listening to it on headphones, they might be listening to it on speakers, they might be playing it on a TV. Because I didn't know where people would be watching it, I used that element of the audio design to allow people to calibrate without even knowing it. That was not something I thought of later. That was something I thought of while I was designing the audio track. Now, I will do another piece about audio, but I wanted to say that because this shot is relatively uneventful visually, because it's just feet and a light on the ground, but it's still telling us this guy's running from or to somewhere, from something or to somewhere. We don't quite know yet. Now, one of the things I want to point out is this shot. Some people are like, how'd you get this shot? Because it looks like, based on the camera perspective, you know, because the camera's going, because the camera's looking this way, and this is up, and, you know, and then we're down. This is down, so the camera's looking this way. So that kind of confused people, because it looks like we're floating backwards through space, like the camera, the viewer, the audience itself is floating backwards through space looking at these feet, which they are. And in order to get that perspective, what I did was I took the camera. Oh, jeez. Every time. I gotta do something better about figuring this out in terms of what I can do. All right, now that's the next shot. My stylus is going berserk right now. I feel like it needs to be unplugged, and then plugged back in. Okay. Sorry. This is what you get for no money. This is what a free stream will get you. All right, I'm gonna put that away. I'm just gonna use this. All right. Okay. Where was I? This is where the chat would be great, but I don't feel like who's watching right now, which I don't blame you based on the way this stream is going. All right. All right. So what I did was I mounted the camera to a monopod. Okay. Essentially, or a piece of my tripod that I took out and just made a monopod with. And I just held. Here, let me switch. Let me switch this up real quick. So what I did was I took the camera and I figured out my focal point when I was inside, before I went outside because it was cold. And I adjusted my focus, and I found my lens and my lens length, because I just had this zoom. I taped up the lens, and then, so there's a monopod coming off this way. So then I held the monopod here, and then I tilted the camera upside down back. Then in post, I flipped that image, and because I had measured the distance and how far out my arm had to be. So I'm holding the camera with my left hand, and I'm holding a flashlight with my right hand for this particular shot, and running through my neighborhood after a fresh snow, near as many street lamps as I could so that I could use what light was available. And then I used that. Then I colored that red, and in post in After Effects, and you know, this is the shot that I ended up with. So I'm fairly happy with this shot, not like ecstatic because it's very muddy, and but the sound really sold what was happening, and the blurriness of it added to the hecticness of like, what am I looking at? Where is this going? And I knew that the audio would be able to carry the shot through to its logical conclusion, and have people interested in what was going on right from the get-go. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of things that start with people running. Everyone likes to start with someone running. All right, this is where the shot gets a little bit more, a little bit clearer. And there's actually a hidden cut in this shot where when it gets dark, I stitched another shot together after. So like it gets dark, you hear the sound, and then it comes back, and then you can see these feet running a little bit more clearly. If I could do this shot again, I probably would have done the angle a little bit more so that I was running screen left. I start to run screen left a little bit here. The angle becomes a little bit more extreme in terms of the screen direction, which should lead us into the next one pretty soon. So yeah, the next shot here, I think we're ready to move on to the next one. Oh, you know what I'll do is let me pull up the actual footage. All right, so this is footage. This is raw footage. Did this a few times. You can see the shadow of the camera there. This is me kind of getting ready, finding some sidewalk to use. You'll notice that these are all upside down because I flipped them upside down. I flipped them right side up later. So this was the original footage, and you'll notice that like I kept getting backlit by the overhead lights, so as a result I had to use pieces of the footage where you weren't seeing my shadow holding a camera out in front of me. So that was one take. This was another one. I shot these at about 4 a.m. Just around the block where I lived, when everyone else was, asleep. I tried various angles and stuff. I'm getting a frame rates dropping way low, but yeah, that one wasn't great. I think this was the take that I used, or at least part of this take was the take that I used. The other thing is you'll notice with this footage, I shot all this footage in 16:9 with the intention of cropping it to 235:1 because I knew it would leave me a little bit of room to get the compositions correct when I cropped, because you can move it up and down. You can move the image up and down in those within that canvas and get a better result. Let's see here. Here's another take. I think I did a lot of running. Did a lot of different running takes on different nights. Did a lot of tests, and these were some of the first things that I filmed. Yeah, so I knew I needed a shot of feet running. And the reason it goes on for so long is because I wanted to set the pacing in the beginning of this whole web series very, very slowly. Despite the fact that there's frenetic action and there's a lot of, kinetic energy in the beginning, I wanted the pacing of the cuts to be slow or seemingly slow. Because, I don't know, why start fast? Start slow. No rush. Just make it gripping from the outset. Otherwise people will be like, this is slow and boring. And nothing's happening. All right. I think that's probably the least interesting angle or shot of the whole piece. Somebody in the chat just asked if I fell while running. I did. I did fall a couple of times. I didn't fall shooting these, but we'll definitely look at some footage of me falling in the future. All right. Let me set up this. This is the next shot. So we go from feet running. So the question in the audience's head is, whose feet are these? So you got to answer that question for everybody and say it's these guys' feet. So the very first close-up we get of our hero, seemingly our hero, or at least, I know it's the hero. Those who have watched it know it's the hero, but anybody watching it is just being introduced to a character. They don't know if it's the hero or not. The first close-up is about screen direction. So now this is where we get into cultural stuff, because in America, as I pointed out, we read from left to right. Left to right means that this is progress. This is regression. Stuff is moving so slowly today. So, knowing that, we have a guy here who's running backwards. He's running away from the future and into the past. So I use screen direction a lot. I always try to remember if characters are making headway or if they're not making headway. A great movie to look at about this would be Mad Max Fury Road. Whilst they do cross the line and they're going in different directions a little bit, most of the time the screen direction has to do with the progress of the characters. And they're just driving one way down a road and the other, but still George Miller plays with the line and does elements where he shows the progress of the characters, whether things are going bad or good. Depends on which side he's shooting on of that line. It's interesting. Anyhow, so we got a guy and he's running. So at this point, for me, he's running away from something. He's running towards the familiar, because the past is familiar to most. So let's do a little progress here. Play it forward a little bit. Now, if you'll notice on the helmet, this helmet was chosen for a very particular reason. It's probably obvious. There it is. Okay. It's got a circle on the side. This is our guy. This is our circle right here. Again, you can see Dream of Me, the circle coming in right here. Now, compositionally, this part wasn't necessarily on purpose, where these be kind of dancing around each other. That was just that was more of a happy accident. However, the choice of font and the choice of the helmet, both being circles, were very much on purpose. In fact, I'm going to show you later a shot of the helmet and the name of the helmet, which is why I bought it. Now, all right, so we see this guy running. You'll also notice, once again, this is the third shot where we have darkness on this side. I don't know why I did an arrow, but this side is more dark, save maybe like that little sneaky light that snuck into my composition. And this light here, this is the light side. So the left side, once for the third shot in a row, we have light on the left side, and then we have darkness on the right. So, why? Well, one of the things we'll find out later is that his helmet is broken. The left side of his helmet, or the right side of the composition here, this should have a light, but it doesn't. There's only light on his right side. Now, this is where people will be like, that's not true. In terms of what I'm about to say, there's a left brain, right brain dichotomy, whether it's proverbial at this point, literal, has no science to back it up or not. There's a lot of schools of thought on it, but a lot of people talk about your left brain being the more, what do you call it, analytical, I believe, and the right side is more creative, something like that. Anyway, the point is that most people see like there's a split in the brain. There's the creative side of people and the analytical, logical side of people. Whether it's one side or the other, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is this guy's helmet, or his head, is off kilter. It's out of whack. That's the whole running theme with this guy. Right now, our circle is not complete. So if you notice, you'll notice later in the helmet, the two sides of the helmet where the lights are, this light is here on this side of the helmet, and this side is here. The two sides, now, because I couldn't get the lighting quite right, and we'll go into this later, probably in another shot, several shots, because I couldn't get the exposure quite right all the time, it doesn't always, you can't always see it, but I taped flashlights so that it was split. There was a half a circle on one side of his head, half a circle on the other. So the point is right now we have an incomplete character. We have an incomplete guy. Left brain is logic, right brain is emotional. That's what somebody in the chat just said. Okay. That's essentially my point, was just kind of a battle between left and right brains. So we have a guy, he's running away from something, towards the past, towards the familiar. He's not complete, and then we have a title screen that's coming up, right? And the title grows as the audio, when you listen to it, the audio builds and the title grows And then something else starts happening. It starts snowing in this shot. Now, this shot lasts all the way until the dream of me expands all the way to the edges of the screen. And the snow gets harsher and harsher as the running happens. Now, you'll notice that this title screen on part 1 is different than all the others, because this part is up here. In all the others, it's underneath. That was terrible. It's underneath there. It's kind of given equal weight, but in the beginning, I didn't want the subtitle is kind of the gimmick. Ugh. Man. I am so tired of this thing. Part of it's my hands are sweaty. And my hands keep sticking and making this thing like... the sensor keeps thinking that I'm clicking on stuff when I'm not. It's because my hand is sticky. Anyhow. So the title at the bottom... can be kind of ignored, because this gimmick, a no-budget science fiction internet serial made by one dude, that was like made by one dude. Anybody should be like, oh man, I got to see how bad this is. So I wanted to make sure that I wowed them right out of the gate. I mean, I tried to wow people for the whole duration of anything that I'm doing, but I wanted to try and wow people right out of the gate by being like, how did one guy do all this? Now, again, in this shot, let me change this up a little bit. What? What is happening with this thing? All right. Man, computer is running really, really weirdly today. Really weirdly. I feel like it's this new monitor. Anyway, let me change this up real quick. So that shot, again, I had this pole coming out from the bottom of the camera. I taped up the lens, tried to get it as wide as possible, found out where the focal point was from this far away. So I'm holding the camera, trying to figure it out, like way out on a stick on the and it's up on a stick, and I'm just holding it out running this way. So I did it a bunch of times. And we'll actually go back to the other setup, and we'll look at those shots here. These ones are kind of funny because you can see me put the thing down. You can see I'm not wearing gloves. You can see a lot of the neighborhood in the background, which I tried to keep to a minimum. This one's too close. I didn't have my arm out wide enough. This was really hard because this is when I realized I couldn't breathe and have the face mask down. So from this point on, because these were like the first things I started. Some of these were even tests that ended up in the final cut of the film. This is when I realized I couldn't breathe. I couldn't exhale and film myself because I would fog up the face mask so much you couldn't see me. Now, it wasn't that bad here because I'm trying to hold off on showing the character, kind of for dramatic effect. So there I am checking the distance. I'm checking the focus and how outstretched my arm has to be. See how this one's in a little bit better focus. I'm kind of slowly learning the ins and outs of the setup. This one wasn't bad. However, I just wasn't happy with some of the things I ran by and some of the lighting. That one wasn't bad. This was the one that I ended up choosing. By the way, this was like one of the worst snowstorms that had ever hit the Northeast, which is part of the reason I was like, oh, I should set this on a weird space station that's covered in snow, and it's completely defunct. All right, so there you go. This is the one I used. You see my bare hand come up into this shot at one point. Right there. But those shots were hard to get because I was running in the snow, holding my camera, and I could only run for so long before I had to breathe. And then whether I wanted it, when I wanted the visor to fog up or not, it was going to, just because of the sheer temperature difference between my face and the outside air. So even though I was holding my breath while I was running, it was like it was going to fog up. So I just had to pretend like I could see, even though I couldn't, which happened a lot during this. There is one more shot that I'm going to show you guys. This is a scrapped angle. And I chose to scrap it because I didn't want to reveal the Nerf gun just yet. I didn't want people to be like, what the heck's going on with this Nerf gun? And it didn't quite fit. It just didn't quite fit. This POV, to me, really tricky to make POV work. So it's like, where are we putting the audience in this shot? In the guy's belly button? I don't know. It's just a strange shot. It's a strange angle, so I scrapped it. And I was like, plus, it didn't tell anything new to the audience other than reveal, oh, there's a crappy prop. Is that supposed to be a crappy prop? Is it not supposed to be a crappy prop? The other thing is I didn't want to show any cars because I was like, they'd probably have a centralized transportation system based on the way this space station was built. So they wouldn't have cars. They wouldn't be manufacturing cars up there, at least not ones that look like this. You know, where would they be getting rubber, I guess? Like, where would they be getting gasoline? You know, what would they be running? You know, all kinds of things. And in this particular shot, I ran all the way to the back of my my apartment, which that's the door right there that he ends up going in the next shot. So that's why I scrapped that. I don't know, it just didn't quite work. Why do we need to see the gun? It also gave away the gun too quickly. I didn't want the gun to be a reveal. I just wanted it to be something that people noticed. You know, I just wanted it to be something that people noticed on their own time. So I'm going to show this shot again. This was the take that I used for the close-up for the title screen, which I knew the title was going to go on this screen. So the helmet, you'll notice, is painted matte black except for the pink portion. That is basically his mohawk because he's a punk rocker. He's the biggest punk in the galaxy, which is why he has a stripe down the middle of his helmet the way it is. True statement, and that's why it's hot pink. So I painted the rest of it matte black because I wanted that blackness to blend in with the suit. I didn't want it to be glossy. Like, it picks up the light, but it's not sheen. Doesn't have a sheen. I didn't want this to have this whole world. I didn't want it to have a sheen to it because sheens look fancy and new. So real quick, I'm going to show you why I chose the helmet I chose. Hopefully you guys can see this all right. The name of the manufacturer was DOT. D-O-T. This is actually the blue version. I ordered a pink version because pink is cheapest also. So that was part of the reason I was like, okay, I'm going to go with pink because pink, this stripe here, was the only part that I left. I painted all of this matte black to get rid of it all, just to give it like a more... the other thing, it goes along with Albus's backstory, because the type of work the Patrius program does, the Patrius program is the program he's from, the type of work they do, black would be the color that they'd wear. They'd wear very minimal, they're kind of like Navy SEALs in space, so they wouldn't be wearing stuff that's overly loud and colorful. They have that thin stripe on their helmets, and then I actually have like a design for their suits that coordinates with that, with just very minimal design or very minimal color that allows them to identify each other. But other than that, it's total. I wanted it to be totally black. So I picked this for two reasons. One, it's called Dot. So I was like, for those of you who know the character, I thought that was a telltale sign that this is the helmet I should get. The other reason is because this one had a very prominent circle right here on the side. And I knew if I painted all this black, it would make that circle stand out more. And yes, for only $60, for $60 and some matte black paint, you too can make your own Albus Corona helmet. I don't know if they sell these helmets anymore though. I was trying to find them today and I did not see them anywhere. So that was the helmet. Excuse me. That was a helmet. Then we have the snow, and there also is a layer of fog that's very, very thin, but it comes in at the end. Now, I'm going to show you the fog first. This is an actual fog machine that I shot with just light shining at it for texture. And I did a lot of different versions of this with different types of light, hard light, soft light, all that stuff. And what I did is I did a blending mode on After Effects and blended that part where it's really shooting pretty hard right here. This, I just laid that over so it felt like there was wind picking up and atmosphere blowing in his face. It's very, very faint in that particular shot, but it is there. The other thing I did was for the snow, right here, the camera is on its side in my bathroom, shooting towards a black piece of like foam core, just complete foam core with some light. And what you're seeing as the snow are pieces of junk mail that I just tore up and made very small pieces of. And then by putting the camera on its side and just dropping it, I got these long streaks of what looks like debris and snow. And I knew I was going to use these repeatedly throughout the series for either snow or just to show, like, I lay them over shots where it looks like there's just stuff blowing through the wind, and I just angle them differently to make essentially snow. I think just to make debris and stuff. There we go. There's some. Yeah. So I use these a lot. There's another one here where I think you can actually see me lean down. Oh yeah, there's the Bud Light box that I turned into a light on the right. I'll show you guys how to do that. All right, there's my head. Gives you an idea of, the perspectives change. There we go. So you'll notice, let me pause it real quick. You'll notice that the pieces here, they have these really long streaks. That's because the shutter blur, I wanted to make sure I never changed the shutter on the camera throughout the whole piece so that everything was hitting the camera sensor through the same shutter speed so that everything would, again, blend cohesively in the final edit when I started compositing all these shots together. So let those play out. There I go. I pick up some more. Hair's all greasy. This was in the dead of winter when even shooting outside was kind of impossible based on how cold it was, because I was up near Boston, where it gets very cold in New England. Or it was particularly cold that year. So using those, now you'll see here on this that they are coming in at an angle. So I put different layers. I put the smaller pieces in the back so it looked like they were further away. Then I put bigger pieces closer up. I put the bigger pieces, I put like a blur on them so that they looked like a lens blur, so it looked like in 3D space they were closer. Then I also did a mat around the helmet, a rough mat, so that some of them would look like they were going behind me. For those of you who don't know what mats are, we're kind of into like a little bit more advanced. We're into slightly more advanced work right now. That's what we're discussing. I'm not sure if I have anything else to add to these. Again, we talked about the font choice last time. Chosen because it has these very, very specific circles for O's, you know, and because the E's are 2 squares, they're essentially a screen on their side, and they also look a little bit like doors to me. We'll get into doors and windows in the future, but another kind of reason the design is the way it is on the helmet. We'll talk about silhouettes of the character later. This back portion here, I'm actually, in this particular shot, I'm not wearing the backpack. I just have the tube tucked into my scarf, but I knew people wouldn't notice, so I used that shot anyway. But you'll see in the next shot, this comes down this way, and it's another kind of like a half circle. Again, trying to make my character very round and make his world very sharp. Despite the fact that it's all covered in snow, and that kind of evens it all out. But, you know, back here we see a lot of angles. Everything's very square. This particular town that I was shooting in is called Somerville, known to local residents as Slummerville. It's a lot of triple deckers. It's very, like, you know, it was very lower class Boston area, and that all that imagery informed a lot of the story later. And even if I had a big budget, I would probably shoot these scenes in a similar type town, American town, like a formal industrial working class town. Now it's just full of college students. But anyway, so I think that's it for today. If there's anything I didn't answer, or if you guys have questions, let me know. Oh, the light in my helmet. This particular light in my helmet was not the flashlights, which I ended up getting later. I just I taped my cell phone into the side of my helmet on the far side, because I hadn't quite found the right flashlights or the right setup to give the helmet its look at this point, because I was still kind of testing things out, seeing if I could even succeed. So that's actually my cell phone just taped inside the side of my helmet, just kind of jammed in next to my face. Yeah, I guess we could talk about the title, Dream of Me. It's kind of a play on words. Well, I mean, it is a play on words. In other languages, you know, like if we're talking Spanish, of me would be mine or my, essentially. That would describe the subject. The prepositional phrase describes the subject. So it's Dream of Me, yes, is the title of the song, but it's kind of a silly title to me, because what it means is really my dream, because that's what a movie is. A movie is just a dream that people have. So there's a dream sequence in this, and there's a lot of that dream thematic stuff, which is very, very played out in movies, but I wanted to give it a title that worked on a lot of levels. So Dream of Me, it sounds like a command also to the audience, like, start dreaming about me. It sounds very arrogant, like, this is mine, and I want you to think about it a lot. And the character has a special connection to the song, Dream a Little Dream of Me. And it also works on the sense that it's my dream as a filmmaker. It's my dream. There's 3 stories being told simultaneously with most movies. Good movies, in my opinion. There's the story of the movie. In other words, the characters have a story. Then there's the story of the production itself, of the making of the movie. And then there's where the story came from. The artists themselves. Where did the story come from? Why did they have these images? Why did they want to make this movie? Now that's a very auteuristic view. That's a very European view of film, which Europeans still kind of revere filmmaking. In America, Hollywood especially, very hard to get anything personal that's big budget made, or at least have anything that's big budget have a personal element to it. I hope to change that. I think I will. Hitchcock was good at working his own personal obsessions into his films. Vertigo is the prime example of like a big budget Hollywood movie that's also an auteur film. Anyway, so Dream of Me works on 3 different levels. It works to me as an artist because it's my dream. It's something that came out of me. It's Dream of Me as in one dude. It's the no-budget science fiction internet serial made by one dude. It's a story. That's the story of the production itself, which is what we're covering in these streams. And then it's also unique to the character, because the song itself, Dream a Little Dream of Me, has a special connection to him and his wife. So all those things rolled together in one title. To me, I don't know, it worked. I thought about other titles. The Anti-Lucan Chronicles was one of them, but the Anti-Lucan Hour may be the title of episode 2. Ooh, previews. Whatever it turns out to be. But yeah, so the subtitle, a no budget, I mean, that's obvious. Science fiction. Science fiction, I never really thought of myself as a science fiction person until I got into this. And, I've heard from other people, Christopher Nolan, I think, said it was Danny Boyle. After Danny Boyle did Sunshine, he was like, I don't want to do science fiction again. Because science fiction is very consuming. It consumes a lot of creative energy. There's a lot. I mean, you have to write the history, the future history, the story itself. You have to write an entire universe worth of history in order to make it believable, which I enjoyed. I never thought I was going to be able to be capable of doing that, at least when I was younger. But turns out I kind of enjoyed it. And I never really thought of myself as a science fiction person up until after I did this. I still don't necessarily think of myself as a science fiction person, but I definitely I definitely have a different appreciation for the people that can do it well. Internet serial rather than web series. I don't know. Internet serial to me, a web series. A series implies something that has a beginning, middle, and end. You know, when people say it's an ongoing series, and I was like, well, then it's a serial. It's serialized, meaning you can watch each individual section, but it could go on for infinity. And that's how I felt about this character. I was like, this character could go on for infinity. For me anyway, because what he goes through is a reflection of what I'm going through in my personal life. And I don't know, internet serial just sounded cooler. And made by one dude. I wanted to get some of the pretentiousness out of it by throwing in one dude. It's kind of a Western, and there's a lot of Western elements in this as it goes on. It's kind of a Western in space, and dude to me just is a Western term, you know, like the old, like a dude from the old West, gunslinger. So that I think that does it for today. Again, if you guys have questions, comments, all that stuff, please put it in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you're finding this randomly. You probably are subscribed already. And if you have suggestions on how to improve things, how to make things less tedious to watch or listen to, let me know. I'm always looking to improve these streams and make them a little bit more interesting. I think, or as interesting as I can make them. I think the next shot is actually the shot after that. Now you'll watch as the title expands, and as soon as it touches the edges of the screen, it cuts to the next shot. So as soon as the E and the D reach the edges. Ready, and boom. Okay, so this is the shot we'll start on next time, which I believe is the very first shot. No, it wasn't the first shot. It might have been one of the first shots I filmed. It might have been. We'll see. I'll have to double check that, but this shot kind of sets up everything for later. It's I like to begin my films and end them in the same places because that's cyclical. That's another giant circle. So I guess that's it for today. So thanks for joining me. I'm Tim. Hopefully we'll get through all this stuff before I'm a million years old. And we'll do it in a way that I'll try to work on the next one so that we don't have as much frame rate problems playing this stuff back. If there's anything I didn't touch on, comment below. All right, that's it for me. Enjoy your Wednesdays, or whenever you're watching this. Enjoy the remainder of your day. All right. Till next time. Oh, you can buy these shirts. They're limited edition. I'm only printing 150 of them. You can find them on represent.com. That would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully I can use that money to buy a faster computer. All right. Good night. Good evening. Good